right, so we are going to get started. I am super excited to introduce our guest today, and this is really going to be an interview format. And this is Dave Hooke. For those of you that have not met Dave, he's from Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and he's going to tell us about his team. And I'm also, Dave, going to ask you for a favorite quote, so be thinking about that. I really today want you to share the good, the bad, the ugly about your business freedom journey with us, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Dave, take a minute, tell us about you personally. We really want to get to know you, and then give us an overview of your real estate business.
Yeah, so you just want to say that again? You want me to start with kind of where I started in real estate?
Yeah, well, we want to know you personally. So tell us a little bit about you personally, and then kind of go into your real estate business. Tell us a little bit, like give us an overview.
Yeah, cool. So I am married with to Jenny is my wife, with 2 kids and one on the way in 2 months. So we'll have a newborn and a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old here very shortly. So busy time of life. As many of you know, my faith's important to me, and I share that with Lars. And one of the things in our business that is something that's important is our compassion program. So we do a lot with that. And I am part owner, half owner of a real estate brokerage as well. I went to college at Penn State, graduated with almost a degree in adventure-based recreation and parks management. Yeah. And then decided that probably wasn't gonna take me very far afterwards. So I switched to economics and ended up graduating with a degree in economics. Started in real estate when I was 23 in the brokerage business, not as much in the sales business, and did that for a number of years. And then got in the sales business, kind of focused on that and built my team. About 4 years ago, I met Lars, and then 3 years ago got involved with B-School and started building my team from there. So that is a little bit about me, both personally and then kind of my journey in real estate.
That's awesome. So thanks so much for that. So start us off with your favorite success quote. It's kind of a way to get that motivational ball rolling.
Yeah, so I didn't actually think about a quote when you asked me to before. And I'm just trying to think some maybe of the things
maybe one that you apply to everyday life and how it sort of helped you in your business.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's as much of a quote as it is part of our vision and our daily mission that we talk about a lot. And that would just be we're constantly trying to enrich the lives of those we interact with. And that can go from a practical sense. We apply that even on our prospecting calls. So we were on prospecting calls this morning, and one of the things I've been doing lately, and I'm out of production, but I noticed that our conversion has been pretty low as a team. So one of my rocks this quarter is to get really in the trenches and be on the dialer every morning with the agents and have them sit with me and kind of get back into that world. And I was just talking with an agent this morning, and there was a lead who had inquired on our CRM, and agent followed back up with them and connected, and I could hear on the call, and it turned out the lead was the agent validated that the lead was in safe harbor, which is a domestic violence kind of got out of a home, wasn't anywhere close to being in a position to buy a home, like not even close. And I asked her to go a little deeper on exactly where she was and why she was in the position she was in, and if that was possible. And we ended up having a deeper conversation with the person, and we can connect her with a local social worker that specializes in being able to get people like her out of that situation. And then at the same time, just to be honest with the person about, obviously it doesn't help us to be able to sell you a home right now. That's not possible, but hopefully this will get you pointed in the right direction. I'm wondering also if you could help us with something. You probably know a couple hundred people. Can you think of anybody that's looking to buy or sell a home? And so just this idea that it doesn't need to be a burn and churn dialer time morning. Our job is really, how can we serve them where they are And it's okay. We can help them and they can help us, even if they're not qualified to buy a home this second. There are other opportunities out there. So I think that goes also for my team members. Just if they're having a hard time, or they're struggling, or they're late in the morning, how can I hold them accountable while at the same time enriching their life in their business and with their family right now? And what does that look like? Because I think that's a tension for us all, is how we hold people accountable and also enrich their lives. And I actually don't think they oppose each other. I think that they align with each other. And so I think that's something that I've tried to live by that's been helpful.
Yeah, that's really great. I love how your team is really behind that same mission. You know, obviously it's easy if it's a quote that means something to you, you're able to, you know, use it day in and day out, but you've really incorporated the team in there, which is awesome. It was a great example about the calls.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so let's talk about something, we're kind of shift gears here, that's really rarely talked about in our industry, and that is some of the failures. So I find that for all business builders, you know, somewhere in the journey really does lie failure. So Dave, tell us about some of the failures in your journey, maybe some of the tougher times where it wasn't so much fun and maybe you even considered giving up.
Yeah, I have a lot of those. I'm going through one right now, actually. So I can talk about a few, and then I'll talk about what I'm working on and struggling with right now.
That'd be awesome.
So couple distinct memories come to mind. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, I was in kind of helping out with a brokerage, but had kind of exited that a little bit. And I was in sales production, and I was doing maybe 70 or so transactions on the list side mostly. And I had an assistant, and I kind of had the beginnings of a buyer's agent relationship. But I was working 7 days a week, and I have some properties, a rental company as well. So I was kind of doing that and working 7 days a week, not see my family. We were just about to have our first child. And it was a complete nightmare. I mean, I had been in real estate then for like 12 years, and I had a conversation with my wife, and it was like, I can't, you know, my dad had been divorced 3 times, and he was in real estate. And I said to my wife, I can't do this for another 12 years. Like, it's not even a viable option anymore. And I mean, the money was fine, but it wasn't a life that was worth continuing to live. And so we just had a conversation about getting out of the business altogether. And I think I had just taken on so much to try and make more money. And potentially, you know, I had this goal of building passive income and, you know, not working or something like that at one point. And I had just continued to add stuff to my plate, and I forgot that there's only 24 hours in a day, and you can't just keep adding without subtracting. So that was a huge failure of almost complete burnout. And it was relational failure, you know, with my wife and family too. There's been lots of other failures, you know, through the last 12 or 15 years. One that comes to mind right now is that, you know, I came away from the intensive, and as you know, Stacey, I put a lot of effort into systems and like operations and kind of the left brain stuff. And I think we do a really good job at that. But I noticed after doing some research that just something as basic as our assign call system, we were not converting at all. And so I looked like one layer deeper, and I realized even like the Zillow Realtor.com leads we have weren't converting at a high level. And so I tapped the shoulder of a couple other agents and got their data, and I realized how poorly we are doing in just like the most basic low-hanging fruit buyer business in Zillow Realtor.com and sign calls. And it's kind of embarrassing. I mean, the numbers that I looked at over the last 9 months. And I think there's all sorts of reasons for that, but I think one thing is for sure is that, you know, when I started my business, I did a lot of cold business, you know, 15 years ago, expireds and door knocking and things like that. But I've put so much energy into systems, which is important. And without them and without the data, I would have never known how we were doing in the last 9 months. Like I would have just been clueless and probably ran off emotion. But I was able to look at the data and just realized I had put so much left brain energy into my team. I had totally failed to be in it and teaching and training on what to say and how to say it. And I asked Dale for some of his time. He spent some time with me the other day and we kind of unpacked a lot of stuff. And he said, you know, these conversion numbers are horrible. He's like, there's no other way to say it. He said, you have a systemic problem in your business. And I'm like, wow, that hurts, you know? And fortunately my list side business is doing really well and is able to compensate for that. But I sat down with my agents a week ago and we had an hour-long meeting about how I've failed to lead them, you know, in what to say and how to say it. And really that's on me, that they're spending all this time meeting our accountability standards and not converting the business at the level that they should. And that's time away from their families. And that's money that by me not stepping up as a leader and a coach and a trainer, I'm taking out of their pockets. And that's not fair. And, you know, so we were able to develop a strategy on what we can each do in the next 90 days to fix that problem. And so that's what I've been doing the past couple of days. And it's been hard. It's been a job. I say every morning I have a new job this morning. So that's been a recent failure. My buy side is losing money if I kind of split it in half. My list side's doing fine, but my buy side has a lot of work to do. So that's a failure we've been working on.
Well, you really did sort of share some, you know, kind of lessons that you've learned from these experiences. But, you know, if you could sum it up, maybe taking a look at, you know, when you felt like you were failing relationships, you felt like you were failing the team by not inspecting what you were expecting. You know, what are some lessons that you're learning from these experiences?
Yeah, good question. So I think the first lesson, the relational lesson, and the kind of taking on too much lesson is, I think it's important to have, like before we agree, because we're like kind of a hard charger, and like it's easy to say like, okay, I want to go from, you know, 40 transactions to 70 transactions, and then, you know, I want to go from 70 to 130 and 130 to 200. And it's almost like when I say that, I put a stake in the ground in front of me, and I've put like a new mountain that I have to like climb up. And I think that I don't know if other people can relate to this, but for me, once I do that, it's like at all costs, I'll have to get there, because it's like my integrity or some weird, like, I don't know, like I set a goal and then I have to get there. And I forget that there are only 24 hours in a day, and that if I set that stake in the ground, it's so easy to like compare ourselves to someone else and say, well, if they're doing this many transactions, I can do that many transactions. So I'm just going to do 150 or 200 transactions. And now I'm just going to put together a strategy to do that. And in like 2 sentences, we've just changed the course of our next 6 months with our family and our kids and everything else. And there's all sorts of collateral damage for me, I think, that occurs when I put a stake in the ground and just say, this is what I'm going to do next year. So I think the lesson for me is to say, okay, I want to put a stake in the ground. This is what I want to do next year. But how will implementing that and chasing that affect the other aspects of my life? And might it be helpful if I wanted to go from 160 transactions last year to 200 or to 230 this year? What would it look like to just do 200 or 180 or stay at 160? And so some years that might be okay. Some years it's not okay, you know, financially or for whatever else. But I think it's just the lesson is to hit pause on the goal and to look at the other options in my life that I might want to press into or improve, and that prosperity or achievement isn't the only measure of success. There's 4 or 5 other ones that we can look at, and sometimes we need to back down the prosperity or achievement bar in order to push up the other ones. And I think that's what I should have done that year that I almost burned out.
Yeah, that's really, really good. I love that insight. You know, and with entrepreneurs, they always say there's no peak at our mountain. right?
Yeah.
We just keep climbing and we're like, oh, that was that stake I set. Oh, good, because now I already set 3 more.
Yeah, right.
And we know that we really don't want that achievement to come at all costs. Like,
Yep.
there's
Yep.
other people it affects. There's, family, there's agents, there's, the pressure we put on ourselves.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I've been through that, and it's not fun. So, and then the more recent one, I think is, I honestly think it's a real similar lesson, only it's inside the business as opposed to, the whole life lesson we just talked about. And that's that our business consists of a lot of different variables that, we measure that can equal success. And I think, there's the leadership variable that metrics, are we learning and growing as a leader and able to provide good leadership to our team? But then there's like the systems and data variable. Do we have that running at the highest level in our business? And then there's sales training. And I think for me, it's kind of the same thing. I put so much energy into 1 or 2 things over the last 2 years that I totally forgot about this other item that, it's okay if maybe these first 2 suffered a little bit so that I could put some energy into sales training. And that's again, just as we're looking at our multiplier projects in our business, or the stakes we're setting in the ground, I'm going to put this system in place or do this or do this. I think it's important to take a holistic approach and look at our business and ask our coach, what might I be missing if I'm putting all my attention on this item? And, it's okay to maybe not go so fast in this lane if it means we need to put some energy into a different lane.
Yeah. So at some point in your journey, a light bulb came on and you either saw the world differently or you broke through some tough obstacles. Tell us about some of those moments of truth.
So I think early on, whenever I was in the brokerage world, I had 3 partners at first, and I was in charge of everything, and I think I was really proud about that. And I think that I was like, I was in my 20s and I was kind of in charge of the brokerage, and I was doing some sales, and I was selling at a pretty high level for just, 1 person with an assistant. And I think that there were light bulbs that went off back then about how much, I wasn't focusing on my top 20%. I just wanted to control everything in my business, and I wasn't willing to delegate, and I wasn't willing to let go of anything in my business. And again, I worked up to, 7 days a week, 80, 90 hours. And, I wasn't married back then, and I could have worked 100 hours, and, burnout wasn't on my mind back then. It wasn't the same time, but, gosh, Stacy, I burnt so many years that I could have been more productive, way more productive, just because I thought I was owning this brokerage. I was in control, and, I was in control of my sales business. I was buying rentals, and I just refused to give any of it up. And looking back, it may have felt good in this weird, achiever mindset, but truthfully, it wasn't practical or pragmatic or even efficient. And I think the light bulb is when I was able to let go of a lot and put other people in charge and just kind of take a lower seat and realize I wasn't as good at a lot of this stuff as other people are. I think that was a big kind of hurdle that I was able to get over, just to give up control in a lot of the business. And that's what helped me exit production. I mean, even as recently as last year, I was I'd given up the brokerage. I'd given up, my rental companies to a manager. I'd given up buyers, and I still wasn't willing to give up listings. They have to see me. They just have to. Lars is you're not even close to that important. It's not even remotely true, and just looking back, it's just that lesson over and over and over again. I wonder what areas of my life right now I hold up as I'm this super important person that it's just not true. And if I would give them up, I could impact, have a greater impact at this stuff I'm actually good at.
Yeah. That's really great. You know, you mentioned sort of that badge of honor that we have, you know, saying I'm so busy, or I'm working on so many, I'm in charge of so many things, I'm important. What do you think you learned from, you know, if you could go back to that person that was starting in real estate and sort of cheating by working extra hours, right? We look at it like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm working all the time because I don't have anybody to answer to, or I'm starting my business, but we're really cheating because we're just taking extra time.
Yep.
What do you think you kind of learned from that really is meaningful, or could help someone with a lesson like that?
So I think that I really was stealing time from my present and from my future. So I was taking time away from myself and from my future by holding on to that badge of honor of, and I remember always saying, I'm so busy. I was this huge badge of honor about how busy I was. And by doing that, and by, you know, continuing on that treadmill, I was inevitably feeling good in the moment about myself. I was feeling more important, and I was feeling good enough. But the truth is that belief about myself is that I needed to be busy or feel important to be good enough. That false belief that I had, you know, come to believe, that lie, was literally the belief that was stealing time from myself at that moment and time for my future. And it took a long time to get rid of that belief that I wasn't good enough, and that to be good enough, I had to be more productive and be busier. But once, and I still think I struggle with that, you know, but once I was able to move past that core mindset, for the most part, I was able to get my life back. And I can't, you know, I wish I could go back and tell my 24-year-old self, Dave, you are good enough. You don't need to be that busy to be good enough, right? And you're not that, like, you don't need to feel important in order to be good enough. If I was able to tell myself that back then, I feel like I could have made the moves that I made more recently a lot earlier, and been comfortable, you know, delegating things and just acknowledging that I don't need to be all things to all people, and that there are people that are better at certain things. And I would have been comfortable with that. And I think I would have gotten time back, and weekends back, and time with my family a lot sooner. I mean, potentially 9 or 10 years sooner than it actually happened.
Yeah, that's great. You know, one of the things I think business owners really struggle with, and you kind of alluded to it, is really enjoying the ride. You know, what practices have you put in place now, you know, to enjoy the journey?
Yeah. So one is just boundaries, like time, like, this is really kind of silly maybe, but time blocks in my calendar that just say no work, no exceptions. And so,
That's wonderful. The work
yeah,
in your block, no work, not just off.
yeah, no work, no exceptions. And in the notes, you know, for a while, for about a year, I had, what was it? In the notes of each one of those appointments, it was something, it was from my son. It was, it said, "We're counting on you, Dad." Mm. And that's what it said in that calendar event. No work, no exceptions. We're counting on you, Dad. And it just went from, and it still does, depending on the day, about 6 o'clock, you know, right to midnight, which means that's, you know, then I go to bed and that's it. So whether that's 5:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30, whatever works for you. But I do that each weekday, and then I also do that on the weekends now. And it's just a really practical boundary for me. And I used to think if I didn't get back to somebody right away, like the world was going to fall in, and it doesn't, right? And so just honoring those boundaries, I think, helps to create margin and family time, and honor that.
Yeah, and that really is part of enjoying the ride. I agree with you, is creating that margin. I do something similar on my phone. I take my apps that I'm normally will, you know, seems like 3 years went by because I was looking at Facebook.
Yeah.
So Facebook, Insta, you know, those things are in a folder that says, "Are you sure, Steve?"
Yeah.
Time.
Yep.
So very interesting that.
Yeah.
similar type things. We got to trick ourselves sometimes, right? To really focus on what's important, because it's easy to get lost in the easy stuff. I think work is easier than
Yep.
sort of family time and presence and
Totally.
putting yourself out there.
Totally. The other thing that I did, I mean, for me, the time suck and, the drain isn't social media, it's my email. So I'm like the email addict who just wants to always get it down to 0 and it feels good. So it's just removing that app from my phone, and it's not accessible anymore. Right. And just making that decision for 60 days and just seeing what's going to happen. Like, is the world going to end or is it not? And then after 60 days, just realizing, okay, I check my email in 2 time blocks a day, at noon and at 4:30 to 5:30, and that's it. And it's on my computer, and it just the shift in how present you are then with your family, because you just allow yourself to access those addictions in these finite time blocks.
Yeah. And I think it's important to point out too that people that maybe are, you're out of production. So if you're in the middle of deals and sort of have to be in your email a little more, there are practical takeaways though, right?
Yeah.
What else can you do to not steal the important time from your family and make sure you're just not wasting it to, it's sort of like you're looking for the next thing that needs to be done when you really wanted time off.
Yeah, and my listing partner, I mean, we have time management, because I think this conversation is at the crux of so much in our business. And so to our agents, we have time management trainings all the time on my team, and we talk about it a lot. And my listing partner, I mean, she'll do 100 transactions this year, and she's as busy as they get right now, right? It's springtime. And but she's really good at what we're talking about. She's just really good at honoring that. And when she shuts down, she shuts down. And there's consequences. She gets some angry co-broke people, but she tells her clients up front, these are the times when I'm on, and these are the times when I'm off. It's right in the listing presentation. And the clients are just totally on board with that. And then setting auto emails and setting like a voicemail that repeats the times you're on and off. You can definitely create these boundaries even when you're at the highest level of production. I believe it.
Yeah, it's setting the expectation. It's when people don't hear from you, don't you feel that they get nervous, like this person's never going to return my call?
And they're not on top of it. But if you tell them up front, this is how I operate, and leave those times on your voicemail, you can kind of relax and not feel that guilt that's kind of pressing, that people don't think I'm on top of it. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. That's great. So let's dig into your business, since we're kind of talking about it now with your listing agent and people in production. So Dave, talk about your current team structure and the production numbers.
Yeah. So right now we have, well, let me just talk about last year. So last year we had just 3 outside sales associates that were with us the whole year. That was the year I stepped out of production. So I had a listing agent and 2 buyer's agents. And we did 163 transactions. And our average price point's around 200,000. So I think our volume is about 32 million or so. It was my goal for our GCI to be $1 million, get to $1 million. That was our goal, and we did. Just barely, but we did. And then this year, we made some hires last year and onboarded them. So we have 5 buyer's agents this year and 1 listing partner. And so 6 agents total. And it's our goal to do 200 transactions this year, and our stretch goal to do 225. So shooting for our goal would be 38 million. And about 1.15 in GCI, or 44 million would be our stretch goal. So it's 5 buyer's agents, 1 listing agent, 1 buy side transaction coordinator, and then 1 listing coordinator who coordinates our listings and contract to close on the list side. And then I do have a full-time VA who helps us with a lot of our systems and operations and accountability.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. What's the most significant change you've seen in your business since enrolling in Real Estate B School?
Operating on systems. So for sure, like just having data to make decisions, to make clear decisions, just like we just talked about. would be the most significant change. And that happened in the first year. We put a lot of that in place. You know, the business tracker or CTE, dialogue tech, you know, call recording, you know, a CRM. We didn't have a CRM. I used FirePoint. You know, using Google Calendars and the buyer appointment tracker and listing appointment tracker, the critical activities, daily paper tracker, you know, all of that stuff is what we operate off of foundationally. Top producer for our contract to close, you know, checklists. We're now just migrating to Trello, but you know, either one. And so that would be the first biggest. And then the second biggest was just getting out of client meetings. Would have never happened without B-School. And that's just changed the whole scope of how we operate as a team, because my job is different. And so I can pour my value into the agents and helping them get to the, you know, where they want to go.
Yeah. And it sounds like, you know, naturally before Real Estate B-School, you weren't really a tracker. You weren't tracking a ton of things.
Nothing.
How do you, and you kind of mentioned in the beginning of the call that, you know, really tracking the numbers allowed you to know that the conversions were bad on the buy side, which allowed you to dig deeper that way.
Yeah.
What do you think tracking has really meant to your business? Because it isn't the fun thing, right? It isn't, you can't really sell tracking to people.
No. Right. Yeah. It's not the magical thing in real estate that we get excited about. But it is for sure, at least for me, the thing that it enabled me to, it enables everything else. So I couldn't get out of production if I wouldn't have been able to look at my numbers, look at the data, look at our conversion, look at how many listing appointments we were taking and how many we needed to take to convert to actual closed listings to make the money we needed to make to get out of production. All of that data came from tracking. And, you know, every week I'm looking at different numbers and managing, you know, cash flow in the next 90 days. You know what it does? It takes a lot of the emotion out of the business. So I think even the people issues, I'm just able to, because I used to operate on this, well, I think we should do this. And I think you're not converting, or I'm not converting because of this. And then people might say, well, I am converting, you know, and there's debate and there's tension. With the data, I can just pull up a couple screens and be like, well, here's what you're doing. It's just a fact. And here's what the team's doing. And so how do we get from where we are to where we want to go? Let's make a plan. And it reduces a lot of the emotion out of every business decision and all the people conversations. Even this conversion, you know, thing that we're working through, there's no way I would have known that without the data that we have. And quite honestly, if I can just get our team from where we are now to where some of the average data of the other teams in B-School gave me, it'll mean, and I'm confident we can, it's not rocket science. I mean, the agents are already picking it up. I'm confident that will make us an extra $80,000 to $100,000 in net profit next year. Just to go from where we are to average. It's not even a home run. And I couldn't do that without the data.
Yeah, that's very interesting that, you know, taking a subject or tracking a tool that is not exciting, it's not fun, it takes time, you got to get everybody's buy-in, and now you're using it to even help them understand how they can make more and how you can be better as a team. Yeah,
for sure. And we say all the time, I mean, I just had an email from one of my agents this morning who said that she said she was in a panic, and she doesn't watch her numbers as much as she'd like to, but she just said, I feel like I'm not doing as much as I did last year, and I want to do better. And I got the business tracker out from last year, and I got this year, and I showed her that she has so far this year 31 properties closed and pending, and last year this time she had 23. And she sent me a long email about thanks for tracking everything and that our data is like right there at your fingertips. I feel better about myself this year, but it's true. It helps us to help our agents in all sorts of ways throughout the year to become better at what they're doing.
Yeah, and can use it in conversations for encouragement when it sounds like maybe tracking is all those hard conversations. But like you said, it takes the emotions out.
Yep.
And they know that they can trust the data as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's one thing that is really exciting about your business today?
Well, so, I mean, for me, there's not one thing. I love being in business now. I am super excited to get up every morning. There's two things that excite me the most right now. One is we just turned our compassion program into a nonprofit, Project Lamplight, and we have a director now for that program, and I'm just excited about it. I mean, there's a lot we can do with it, and you know, we hope to be able to give $100,000 away through the program here by 2020. So we have 2 years to do that, and I know we're going to be able to. So just being able to use the real estate business as a mechanism to help people in need in the community is super exciting for me. And then the other really exciting thing is just like being in a position where I can literally weekly sit down with a person in this business and use the tools that we have to say, here's where you are, and here's what you're making, and here's your work-life balance, and here's where you want to go. And that's different for each member on my team. I have one team member who just wants to, I mean, they want to make more money, and they're just aggressively looking to do that. They're in that season of life, and being able to say, here's what you did last year, here's where you are, and here's where you want to go, and here's how many contacts you have to make, here's how many new buyer appointments you have to set, you know, here are the tools, a showing assistant to help you get there, and being able to provide that to a person to help them get from here to there is super exciting. And likewise, I have another agent who wants to grow, but also wants to really spend a little bit more time with her family, and being able to walk them through my failures in having an assistant and a showing assistant to help show properties and what that conversation looks like, and leveraging that in order to get an extra day off per week, and being in a position to help change somebody's life as long as they're committed to do it is super, super exciting for me. So, but both of those things I would say are energizing me right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Especially being able to paint the picture for someone about how their lives could be better by being not just, we want you to sell 1,000 homes, you know, don't care how you do it, hope you have a family at the end.
Yeah.
It's really, we care about you too.
Yeah, being able to pour into someone and actually make a legitimate difference in what their life looks like in the next 6 months, next year, and the year after that. So yeah, there's a lot to be excited about, and I couldn't, you know, again, I give a lot of credit, all the credit to God, and then to B School. It's like I could have gone on for years not implementing the systems to be able to get out of client meetings and not be in a position where I can affect other people the way that I can now. And I don't think I would have been in real estate now had I not put those systems in place. So it's just really cool to see the changes that have occurred in the last 3 years to enable me to do that.
Yeah. So let's look even more big picture of your team. What vision do you have for the future?
So where we hope to go is, you know, we want to be doing more business. And I think the primary motivator for me right now to be doing more business, 400 transactions 2 years from now, is because a couple reasons. One thing I've learned is that with our buyer agent business, it's a hard job. Like the buyer agent business is such a hard job, and it's a grind. And I was watching a couple videos by some just different webinars that are out there, and I was talking with Lars a little bit about this, and there are definite leverage points for the buyer's agents that can help them get to a better place. And I think it's always going to be a hard job. But for me, in order to afford and formalize the position of showing assistant, and also be able to put in place a level of transaction coordination that keeps our buyers and listing agents out of the reply to inspection, I need to grow our business to increase revenue and be able to invest in some of those people leverage points that our agents currently don't have on my career track right now. So they're kind of on their own, and I'd like to formalize some of those positions. So I know that by growing our business, in investing in more leads and better conversion and a few more agents, we'll be able to afford later on this year to formalize some of those positions. And then I really hope to, if we can reach that goal, to have an aspect of our career track that has the showing assistance and the contract to close portion that keeps our agents out of the reply to inspection. And if we can get there, I hope to look to another market or two to have a subset of my team in those markets and double down on our compassion program, the Project Lamplight, in those communities as well. And for me, I'd love to see the team giving back to multiple communities, around my marketplace, and just using the team both to make the lives of the agents on it better, as long as they're willing to make that commitment, but also to give back to those communities.
Yeah, that's great. Earlier in the interview, you mentioned about the community, how you sort of leaned on other Real Estate B School members to support you, get answers about conversion. When you're wondering how you're doing, you're really sort of looking to the community. As you were growing your team, what challenges did you have moving through each, scale, ramp, all different phases? Talk about that and the challenges that were there.
The biggest challenge for me was, it was like myself and an assistant. And when I was able to, with the appropriate margins, onboard a buyer's agent, I felt a lot of relief. Just right when that happened, it was almost just like, oh, this is a different pace. But then, I reinvested in more business. And so my time filled back up pretty quickly just on the list side. And from there, I think the next super hard phase for me was being in production at that level to make enough money to support myself and my small kind of budding team, and the CRM and some of the systems that I'd implemented. Doing that and that production, while knowing I was seeking to get out of production so I could reinvest in my team, that phase of like being in production and sitting down in front of my computer for 3 hours at a time and reading the lead management policy and like learning the business tracker or CTE and learning dialogue tech and like the phone routing, like things of like how to set up a find me, like that year of my business was incredibly hard because I would be putting in a full week of production and then I would have to honor this time block on Saturday morning to create the how we work document and type it out, right? And like internalize it and make those decisions on like what it should say and what the consequences of like not showing up to a team meeting and like writing that in a paragraph. That kind of work for a year on top of being in production was hard.
Yeah, it's tough.
And my wife and I had a lot of conversations. I mean, there was one time when she was in tears and she says, and it was that year that I knew I had to put these systems in place to get out of production so I could free up my time to have time with my family and invest in our agents on our team. And I knew I had to get through this year of like in production and putting the systems in place so that I could get out of production. And she said one weekend after like 7 or 8 months of that type of thing, and we had kind of made this decision together to go on this journey. She said, I just don't know if I trust you that if you do actually get out of production, that this is going to actually stop. And I don't know if I trust you that you are ever going to be able to do it. And she was in tears, and I was like, it was just a really tough conversation. So that was the hardest part of my journey. I do remember though, like, I remember talking to Lars, and I remember talking to some other B schoolers that had done it. And I also, I mean, Lars always makes the joke that Julie thought he was like upstairs like, doing something on a computer or something like till 2 a.m. And over and over and over and over again, I hear this reality that agents, there's a year or so that's just super hard. And, you know, I think for Lars, it may have taken him even longer. And I think the hope is that with other B schoolers kind of there that have been through it, that you can lean on, or Facebook message, because I did a lot of that. And I got encouragement back. Like, I know I went through that too. Like, and it is hard, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And I think that the ability to hear that and just know that the things that we're implementing, if we just trust that process and implement them and actually do that work, it actually does happen. Like, it isn't a smokescreen. It happened for me, and it happened for dozens of other B schoolers, that you can get to that point. But it isn't an easy path.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something really important. You know, your wife said, I don't believe you're going to do it this time. You probably had made promises before.
Yeah.
Oh, let me, you know, look, it'll just be a couple months and then the business will be over. Or whatever. Why was this last time different? Was it guidance? Was it more of a commitment? What was different?
You mean, why did it actually work?
Yeah. Why did it work this time?
So I know this time, and I could prove it, that there were actually other people in this same business that had put these same systems in place, and these margins, and these pay plans, and these, you know, lead gen systems in place, and had the same result. And there was proof of that it had occurred. It wasn't just a coach saying, if you do this, you'll make more money, right? It was a coach saying, I did this, and I don't even know if he ever said he made more money. I mean, I know he did well, but it was, I did this, and here's the result, right? And then other B schoolers, exact same thing. And so I think the difference was that I could see with 100% proof that if I implemented these systems in this amount of time, and I could put it on a calendar, that here was the result over and over and over again. And those people have names, and I could talk to them. And if I wanted to, I could have my wife talk to them. Yeah. So I think that was a big difference from the times before.
Yeah, it wasn't just lip service. It was true proven processes that you could go to multiple people.
Yeah, for sure.
To get answers.
Yep.
That's awesome. Okay, so this is my favorite part of the interview. This is the lightning round. So
oh no.
Get ready. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you come back at me with some mind-blowing answers. That's the plan? Sounds good. Okay, so what keeps you up at night when it comes to your business?
People issues.
Awesome. What was holding you back from building a real estate team?
Fear and pride.
What's the best advice you've ever received about business?
Put systems in place so you can track everything.
Can you share one of your personal daily or weekly habits that you believe contributes to your success?
Master your mornings. Don't touch the urgent until you get the important but not urgent items out of the way. Don't open it, don't touch it, and honor those time blocks at all costs. As Thomas Elrod famously says, if something's actually burning down, call the fire department, right? Otherwise, just do the work that you put in front of you.
Yeah, Oh, that answer was gold. Hopefully everybody wrote that one down. Do you have an app or like an internet resource or something that you're in love with that you would share with us?
I mean, Audible is like, I live on Audible. In the morning, part of my mastermind morning, it's hard for me to start prospecting calls, even to this day, and that's my new job, without listening to some couple pages of fanatical prospecting or something on Audible. So Audible's huge. Voxer as a team is just a no-brainer. I think those are the main two that I rely on just every day.
Awesome. And perfect segue. If you could recommend one book for us, what would it be?
Only because, oh no, I can't. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
What were you going to say that you said, no, I can't?
Well, right now it's just, I'm in this fanatical prospecting, like I'm just going to listen to it like 100 times.
Yeah.
So yeah, but 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is probably my favorite, most influential book, in all, just from life perspective.
That's awesome. There's a kid version as well on Audible.
I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah, you can have your kids listen.
Check that out.
So Dave, last question.
Yeah.
If you had to do it all over again, and this is not lightning answer, but
yeah,
if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently?
So I would have definitely changed the mindset about myself, just not needing, we talked about in the beginning of the call, not needing to be busy and be more productive, productive and busy and control more doesn't make me good enough. And that mindset, that core belief that I'm not good enough, and to be good enough, I need to do more. I would have somehow, if it was within my control, worked on just daily, whatever it took to change that core belief about myself so that I could give my permission to let a lot of stuff go. And from the beginning, and this is more financial, so that was a mindset thing. I would have worked in a time block methodology with important but not urgent things done before 10 a.m. and not touching anything after that. And then the third thing that I would have done differently is ask people that are much further along in my business, like B School, how to set up proper margins in cost of sale to the brokerage, if you're a part of a brokerage, and to your agent's pay structure, so that you can properly set that up the first time, and implemented systems and technology into my business really before anything else. It's that important. So those are 3 things, I think: mindset, the time blocking, and what to do in the morning, and then kind of the financial and system side.
Yeah. Dave, I have truly enjoyed listening to you today, answer these questions, and just being open and honest, and just very humble about your journey. And I know so many people are going to benefit from this. So we here at Real Estate B School, thank you so much. And I'm just going to open it up real quick for any questions. If anybody has any questions for Dave, got just a few minutes left. I'd be happy to read them and get his wisdom for you.
Yeah, and by the way, Stacy, thank you, because you coached me at points in my journey, and we've had conversations, and you've given me direction that, without you, I would have probably taken additional wrong turns. So thank you. You've been a big impact to me too.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so here's a couple questions. What are the average numbers you're shooting for on the buyer side?
So 100 transactions, actually 122 to hit our stretch goal this year, 100 to hit our regular goal this year.
That's awesome. And how about on like conversions? So you've been working on those numbers. What kind of conversion numbers are you looking at from like Zillow versus FirePoint?
So I can post this in the Facebook group when we're done with the call, but we always have to be so careful around this conversation because you have to be careful that you're comparing apples to apples.
Correct.
But just to give you a rough example, and I'll post it, and with Dave Friedman's permission, I'll post some of his too because he shared his with me. If we received 400 sign calls, and this was the math we were doing from September, the question I was asking is how many closed and pendings did we have in the sign call category? And what I was seeing from some other teams was right somewhere in the 3 to 3.5 or as much as 4% range. If you looked at total closed and pendings from September till now, and you did the math, myself, we received about 400 sign calls. Unfortunately, all my team had was 1.5% in that time period. And I was seeing 3.5 to 4% in that category. For Zillow and Realtor.com, over and over again, I was also seeing around 4%. If we had, 600 leads come in for those two lead sources. And again, we had leads incoming, appointments set, appointments met, buyers signed, and then closed and pendings. And that closed and pendings compared to leads inbound over and over again was around 4% for 2 or 3 different teams. And ours was only 2.9. So we'd like to get those numbers up.
Okay, awesome. And, just so you know, because I don't know if you can see the chat or not, but a whole bunch of people have just mentioned, like, thanks for being so open, and they feel like they really can relate. And other people are mentioning they had fear too, and things seem overwhelming. So I know you've helped so many people today. And so we honor you and your time and your journey here at Real Estate B-School. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being so open.
Yeah.
And we look forward to you sharing in the future.
Cool. Thanks a lot for your help as well, Stacy. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
All right.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care. Bye-bye.